Assalamualaikum guys. We have looked into the issue of financial scamming using Islam, and I was saying earlier that the ordinary investors or Muslim investors were quite naive and innocent when it comes to Islam, and they will rely on the Sharia expert or Sharia authority on the Sharia compliant position of the investment. And this is when the scammers come in to take advantage and to try to make the investor to believe that their scheme are truly Sharia compliant or patuh Sharia. As I said earlier, that the Muslims are also very strong in the Taqlid culture or Taqlid mentality. Whatever that is related to Islam will be passed on to the Sharia scholar, and they will spend less of their akal to investigate or to find out more about the investment, even though sometimes the investment can be illogical, making 1000% profit and so on. These people will still believe that this investment is compliant, Sharia compliant, and no matter what the reward are, they will still go, even though the reward can be illogical, they will still go on to invest because of the Islamic label given to that scheme, which finally, ended up in a scam. So I would like just to share with you two rules of Islamic investment, just to caution potential investor with regards to the Islamic investment that they are taking, to ensure that the investment are properly halal and accepted by Allah and blessed by Allah. And this has to be rule number one, that the principle of investment in Islam must be based on the legal maxim, al-ghurum bil-ghunni, no taking of profit without the taking of loss. So this is a very simple rule: no pay, no gain, no profit without loss. And Muslim or investing Muslim must be very careful about any scheme that will promise profit that is quiet without the taking of loss, right? So meaning that any capital that we put into the investment must be allowed to appreciate and depreciate, because the outcome of the investment will always be based on the market forces. So we are a free market believer, that we allow our business outcome to be based on the demand and supply, and not based on some artificial system or monopoly or some scheme that will bring about fraudulent practices. So meaning that when in a real investment, when we make profit, then our capital investment will go up, and in a loss event, our capital investment will depreciate. So we will allow capital to go up and down based on the performance of the market, demand and supply, right? So no taking of profit without the taking of loss, al-ghurur bil-ghunni. And whenever we are confronted with this offering of capital redemption in the event of loss, capital guaranteed in the event of loss, we must be, we must recall this principle of al-ghurur bil-ghunni, that no pay, no gain, profit must be taken with loss. Anything that is against this rule is haram. That is not acceptable in the point of Islam. Number two, the rule of investment in stock, unit trust, REITs, whatever, it must be free from riba, it must be free from gharar, it must be free from gambling, and it must be free from the engagement into prohibited commodities. And I'm saying that rule number one and rule number two must be well connected, they must be well linked, they must be well associated, they cannot be in a silo, or they cannot be isolated, they must be interdependent. For example, riba. If there is riba in the investment, that will lead to capital appreciation only. So whenever the investment will lead to capital appreciation only, that will violate rule number 1, because rule number one will say no pain, no gain. Loss is profit is accompanied with loss, right? So riba is prohibited because it will lead to capital appreciation only. That will go against rule number 1. Gharar, ambiguity, any material injuries to the counterparty from gharar, cannot be, compensated, as the contract with gharar is not enforceable in the court of law. So that is why if there's any gharar in the investment, that gharar must be first identified, and if you find gharar in the investment, then we must not invest in that scheme, right? Because any dispute between you and the investor and the manager, will not be enforceable in the court of law, and your loss, nobody will not be compensated, and that will be a great loss if gharar prevails. So gharar must be eliminated at all costs. Gambling is excessive risk, where capital can be completely lost. So meaning that you invest $10,000 in gambling, then it is either you win 1 million or we lose the $10,000 bet that we make in the gambling investment, right? So gambling is excessive risk. Gain to the one person is a loss to the other, and the loss is due to chance. It is not due to market forces, and therefore we must be able to see any investment that is having this kind of character, or gambling character, must be removed, and we should not be doing anything that is similar to gambling in our investment. Any investment that is dealing with prohibited commodities like pork or like alcohol or narcotics, of course, in general, we will see that all of these three commodities will endanger our life or nasal, our nafs. Some of these commodities are not healthy. It will also destroy our intellects in case of alcohol and narcotics. The consumption of this prohibited commodity will destroy our capacity to think and to reason, and that is why Islam prohibited this commodity in business. Right, so this rule 1 and 2 must be properly connected. It cannot be in a silo. It cannot be isolated, and that is why I'm very concerned that whenever Sharia or any of the system is using rule number 2, they tend to forget about rule number 1. Right, so the Sharia screening has been using riba, gharar, gambling, and all of this prohibited commodity as the object to be eliminated from the investment contract. But they forgot about rule number 1, al-gharam bi-ghanni. So that no pain, no gain rule must prevail in the Islamic investment. It cannot be assumed to take place. It must be mentioned in the most visible manner. No pain, no gain, al-gharam bi-ghanni. So this is the most important rule in investment, and to be supported by rule number 2 in the financial screening of that particular investment. Okay, guys, thank you for listening. Please don't forget to comment, to subscribe. I'll see you again. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.